Hello everyone, it's me, the Casual Brewer, and I look forward to sharing with you today how to brew the casual way. So this is a recipe that I have from Craft Brew. It's a Florida Vice, so it's going to be a fruit sour, and I decided to go with a peach sour. Normally I do this with raspberries, but I thought this time let's try it with peaches. So this Craft Brew kit comes with just about everything you need, but I also have a lot of other equipment here that's worth mentioning. I've got a wort chiller here. I've got this basically this roasting pan that I use to help cool down the pot when I put it in there. I've got a 4-quart pitcher, and I've got a 20-quart boil pot. And then this is going to be basically what I'm going to use for helping me with the chilling process, which you'll see later. So it's kind of a brew kettle turned into a cooling vat, if you will, to help push cool water in through the wort chiller. And let's get started. So let's take a look at what's inside this Craft Brew Florida Vice brewing recipe kit. This is a 5-gallon kit that I got online. It comes with grains, oats, and hops. These are Tetnang hops for bittering. Comes with yeast, Safe Ale US-05 yeast, lactic acid bacteria to help with the souring, and dried malt extract. This is 3.0 level bond Rice Bavarian wheat DME. And that's everything we need to get started. It also comes with a handy grain filter as you're soaking the grain. This water I actually filled into these 1-gallon jugs overnight just to save time today. So that way I can use tap water from our refrigerator, which takes a little while to distribute the filtered water. So that way I've got 3 gallons ready to go day of brewing. So all I do is uncap it and start filling it up. Also, I'm going to turn on my burner. I have an electric oven, but with this pot works pretty well to get it up to temperature and to boil. We are pretty much at temperature. We are at 160 Fahrenheit. Now I'm going to add a bag of grains. Steep it. Start a timer for 20 minutes. And actually, I take out the thermometer and I turn off the burner and set it to the side. That way it stays at 160, pretty close to it. Okay, so now the grains have been steeping for 20 minutes. It is ready for the next step. Put this back on the burner. Turn the burner back on high. It's time to take these grains out. I actually use a strainer just to help capture a little bit more. And ideally, you have a pot holder to hold it with. So if you have something that you can use that'll hang off the edge, that'll help take some of the weight off. It's better than it dropping into the wort and splashing hot water. That's happened, not fun. So this is a good compromise. Just kind of wait for the dripping to slow down. Once it's slowed, we are now waiting for it to come to a boil. So it should come to a boil in 10-ish, 15-ish minutes, depending on how good your stove is. Try to make sure that's centered. While I'm waiting for that boil to happen, I am going to start filling up my cooling reservoir, which is really a brew kettle, to about 6 gallons. And this will be able to help me cool. In order to be extra sure that it's cool, I put this Cooler Shock ice pack in there. I find it's easier to reuse that than just to put in fresh ice every time. I don't have to keep running through ice in my refrigerator. So, and this cools more efficiently anyway. So that's going to go in. Help keep it nice and cool for the wort chiller. Okay, the boil process is complete. It has started boiling. That's all we need. Take We'll start adding the DME extract. Put my big stirrer in there. For the Palmer method, I try to just add half. You stir while you're adding to reduce clumping. Now we're going to cool it down. Carry over your pot. Soothe the roaster pan with water. Put in a little bit of ice on the sides. This just helps the base cool. Right, I am just waiting for this temperature to get down to 100 degrees. I use that metal thermometer again. You can use a digital thermometer, laser guided or whatever, that's fine too, infrared, but metal works fine also. And yeah, it's all flowing. I actually had it hooked up wrong. I noticed that after making the last video, so I just had to pause it, connect the hoses to the right one. You want the intake going to the high end of the hose and the output going to the low part of the wort chiller, the output going into the sink. So I just had it backwards. I noticed it. Nothing broke. It's not going to ruin the batch. Just wasn't efficient for the cooling. So now it should be. So this is the last part here for today. Just going to cut. It is now cooled below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And I need plastic wrap big enough to cover the whole opening. Add lactic bacteria for kettle souring. I've already cut the top part off. There's a little Ziploc in it. Open it up. Also known as the bugs. Pour the bugs in relatively evenly. Get it reasonably tight, but the lid is going to do the rest of the work. Create that seal. There we go. That is it for part one. Just going to let it sit for 3 days and then come back to the rest of the process. Hey there, casual brewer, and we're here to finish that kettle sour by picking some fruit on the local farm. In this case, peaches. Peaches are in season this year where I am, and I'm going to get about 4 pounds of these guys and puree them, put them in the brew later. So looking forward to that. Okay, so it's been 3 days since we did part one of this brewing process for the kettle souring. It is now ready for the next step. First, we're going to take a look inside after taking off this wrap. Big unveiling. Certainly smells sour, certainly looks sour. You can see it's got a little film on top. That's totally normal. So I think it's now ready. Take this off. Turn on the stove. Wait for it to boil. So we're going to bring it all the way up to boil and then add in the hops. Right there we have it all chopped up and pitted. Got about 4.6 pounds of peaches. I think that was about 13 peaches that I had. So now, ready to put them into the juicer. Okay, so we got it boiling now. You can see the foam is rising. So what I do when that happens, if it gets too high, I simply move it off to the side, off the burner. Let the foam come down a bit. And when it's settled down, just put it back on. Continue that process until the foam basically breaks. Once it breaks, then it's pretty good. I actually take the temperature from my burner and I cut it in about half once it's at this point, because you need just a low roiling boil. You don't need the high super boil at this stage. You want it to be a low roiling boil. So a boil but not super intense, because you don't want it to overflow onto the stove and cause a big accident. So that is how I've handled it. So once it's at the boil and it's relatively stable, I'm going to add, in this case, the Tetnang hops. So I'm going to add the hops. I'm still going to kind of let this thing settle a little bit. So once you toss in the hops, then you start that 60-minute timer. Alright, I think that's pretty stable. I'm going to open up the hops. Nice and wide. Drop it in. Set this timer. And you can see nice green blob emerging. Foam cap gets too high, same thing. Scooch it to the side, let it calm down. Once it's calm, bring it back. After a minute or so, it should get to a point where it's pretty stable. You don't have to keep moving it around. That looks pretty good. Let's see. So now that foam cap's starting to break a little bit and not push up to the top anymore. Okay, so while we're waiting for the boil to complete, I'm going to start juicing these delicious peaches. So these peaches basically are ready to go. They're just a little bit chopped up. And once I put it into this Hamilton Beach juicer, then it's going to extract all the juice out of these peaches and put it in this container. The waste will go back here. Just put like a little grocery bag in here to make the cleanup easier. But that is the next step. Load this guy up. Turn it on. And voila, peach juice. So I'm just going to keep filling up these quart-sized containers until all the peaches are done. Okay, so we are 15 minutes away from the end of the boil. And if you remember, saved half of the extract for this part for the Palmer method. So now we're going to add it back in. Slowly stirring it in. Okay, so now all of the DME extract is in the wort, and there's about 13 minutes left to go. I'm going to continue preparing the cooling station while this is finishing up, and then with 2 minutes left to go, we'll add in the juice. Okay, so now I've got my 2.5 gallons of warm water, not too hot because you actually need to be able to touch it with your hands sometimes, the sanitization solution. So I'm going to pour in half an ounce of the Star San sanitizer. Stir that. Now I've got 2.5 gallons of sanitizer. I've got my wort chiller hooked up and ready to go. I've got my ice water reservoir with about 6 gallons of ice in there. Okay, it is now 2 minutes from the end of the boil. Time to add the peach juice. There it is. While we're waiting for this to cool, I'm going to start sanitizing some things. This is a strainer. I'm going to use that later as I'm transferring it. Got my transfer tube in here already. I'm going to hook up to my auto siphon. I'm going to get a little bit in this spray bottle here. Don't need a lot, but helps to have some on hand. Then I'm going to sanitize this rubber gasket that belongs to the catalyst and the butterfly valve that belongs to the catalyst. Just put that right in. All that just be sanitizing. Temperature right now is a little over 100, so just wait for it to get a little bit cooler before I start the transfer. Oh, and I need my auto siphon. So go find that and add this in here too. Okay, we're getting close now. I used the spray bottle to spray the catalyst with sanitizer. Temperature is almost at 80, a little less than 100. I got the lid sprayed. I think I got everything pretty much ready to go. You can see the transfer happening. The metal filter is working. It's all going. Once it gets all the way drained, then I'll tilt it and get the rest in. And pour in some fresh water, cold water, to help fill it up. I'm just a little short. Let me get some from the fridge. Once this water's boiled, then you just put it into a cocktail shaker. Close it up. And put it in an ice bath. The cocktail shaker's got a thin metal wall, stainless steel, and putting it into an ice bath makes it cool down really quick. You gotta get it down to 80 degrees. It only takes 5 minutes with this method. So once it's down, you start using a temperature probe. I use a infrared one to help figure out what the temperature is without getting anything else into the water. And once it's at 80 degrees, then you can pour the yeast. Open it up, pour it in. Center it as much as you can. Close it up. Set a timer for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, we'll stir it gently. Wait another 15 minutes, then pitch it. Okay, I've started the aerator. As you can see, is going through this air filter and pushing air through that end point into the wort. Aerate for about 10 minutes. Then take it out and pitch the yeast. I got the yeast in here, ready to go in. Just take off the top. Actually, one last swirl. Then take off the top. Lift a little bit more. Pour it in. Okay, yeast is pitched. I'm going to close this up. Okay. Got my sanitizer here. I'm going to clip it in and set this on top of the plug. Trying to make sure it doesn't push it out and the carbon dioxide starts flowing. So now I'm going to clip this to the side so it doesn't go anywhere. It's my blow off tube. And it should be good to go. So it should start fermenting in about 24 to 48 hours, and very excited to see that happen.